I cannot believe we are approaching 100 episodes of this podcast. I started this in 2022 and I thought, um, it was a handy thing to do. But one, I've really enjoyed it. I've loved doing this. But more than that, I've had so many people message me and come and connect with me because they found the podcast. And I find it really enjoyable. And today I thought I'd talk about something that kind of I've struggled with about the whole social media, personal branding, self promotion thing. And it's a bit controversial, but I thought I'd share it because, I think the more you put yourself out there online, the more you kind of push yourself out there. One of the things I've found is my ideas get clearer. Like when you're going through like busyness of life, running a business, doing all that stuff, you kind of don't have a lot of time to think. And when I'm doing this podcast or I'm making posts and stuff, it kind of, as I'm writing stuff, as I'm saying stuff, it's kind of distilling stuff for me. Hopefully, you get what I'm saying here. Like, I will get to my point, but it's all connected here today. Um, we talk about values, right? We have values, and most of our values are quite generic. Honesty, integrity, all that kind of stuff. We would all agree on certain levels of values. But when it comes to promoting yourself, when it comes to sharing your ideas and your thoughts with the world, you kind of have to have a bit more than just the generic values. What do you really believe? What do you stand for inside your topic? And the weird thing is, most people who, like in marketing for me, right? I obviously specialize in LinkedIn and social selling, but within the marketing discipline, a lot of the principles are transferable. Whether it's SEO, it's this, it's that, it's the other. The principles of marketing cross whatever medium you're focused on. And if you're an expert in a particular field, if you're a subject matter expert in a particular field, you will have years of experience. You will have a certain level of balance to the way you communicate. By that, I mean, when I was new into marketing, right? When I was kind of really naive and somebody had come to me and say their previous agency let them down, I would happily go, they must be idiots, they must be stupid, and kind of jump on the bandwagon of, oh, that past agency that client used was rubbish. But as you get more experienced, you realize it's far more complicated than just bad agency, good client, good agency. So as you develop in your subject matter expertise, as you build your experience, you suddenly realize that things aren't so black and white. And please go with me here because this is a big deal, right? So I know that I could say, here's the ultimate template to transform your business in 90 days, right? But the reality is, I know it's not about the template, it's about how you use the template. I know that one size doesn't fit all. I know that if I say, here's how you can build your business to $50,000 a month in the next 90 days, I know that there's going to be some people who can do that and some people who can't. Why? I'm experienced. I know what I'm doing. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know that, like, you could give a template to somebody and they just completely cock it up. You could give a template to somebody else and they completely ace it. So as you get more experienced, and you'll get this in your own field, you suddenly realize that things are far more complicated than just good or bad or click or no click or whatever. But this creates a fundamental problem for what I would say reasonable and experienced people. So if you're an experienced person on LinkedIn or a reasonable person on LinkedIn or social media generally, this is going to create a major problem for you. In other words, the people with the most experience, the people who are more likely to get the best results for their clients, actually lose because of this problem. So the problem is this: reasonable people don't get attention on LinkedIn. Yeah. Middle of the road people don't get attention online. And this is a real battle because, like, if you think about this, right? Sensible business, good, good grounded people, basically, when you go to TikTok, you go to LinkedIn, you go to Instagram, people don't want actual answers. They want quick clicks. They want sizzle. They want something landed in seconds. They want a simplistic message given in seconds. And so people like me, people like you, if you've got any length of experience in doing what you do, will suddenly realize that these absolutes that people put on social media, cold calling is dead and this is that, and it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And there's two ways we have to think about this is, and I'm going to talk about my own experience here, right? We either go with it or we carve our own path. And the carving path is a serious commitment because people don't want proper answers. They want sound bites. And people might say, well, social media has been terrible at doing this. Terrible. Well, yes, it has. But actually, the media generally has been slowly over decades eroding um, or sensationalizing everything. So we end up in a situation whereby if it's not sensationalized, if it's not quick and instant and now, and if it's not a big, bold outcome, nobody wants to know. So I thought I'd do this podcast on my experience of this, some of the thoughts about it, some of the ways that I'm trying to change myself so that I can get into that place. Because society seems to reward people who basically are unreasonable, yeah, who have strong opinions. Society seems to give more attention to people who stand for something. Good, bad, and ugly there, right? So it's not just good people who stand for something, bad people who stand for something get attention too. So reasonable people generally struggle because, and let's just, we live in a world. I'm recording this as a general election is kicking off in the UK. You've got a very bitter battle in the US for presidents. And if you look at the elections, if you look at what goes on, there's a whole load of stuff that's happened here with Rishi Sunak, bumbles and mistakes that actually the headlines get remembered more than the substance. So why do reasonable people struggle with social media? It's because one, and I'm talking about reasonable people in the sense of your experience, you're a well-rounded human being, you're a generally good person, right? Why do we struggle? Why do we struggle with it? Because we don't have strong opinions. We can actually appreciate different points of view, right? And I'm saying this and going, what the hell? How have we got here whereby um, balanced perspectives just don't stand out? And then I started to think about this and go, well, hang on a minute. I am not here to share a balanced perspective. And this is where I think we really go wrong. Reasonable people, why do we go wrong here? Well, we go wrong here because we think we're the news. We think we have to explain how, almost like our solution's the best. But we don't want to say that because we know that there are other solutions that are just as good. And so what we do is we dumb down what we believe. So because we don't hold those strong opinions or we have reasonable opinions, other people come along and say this is the best solution to this problem, which in my view is naive. But actually I'm here to like like if you think about it, right? If I ran an election campaign and said we've all got great ideas here, everybody on this podium in this debate has got great ideas here, um, but I feel I have the better one. Right, that reasonableness does not work because you're basically elevating your competition. You're giving people a reason to go, well, maybe theirs isn't so bad. Now, I'm not saying you attack, but because we don't have strong opinions to say we believe our solution is the best one, because we don't advocate for our strong ideas and we kind of go, well, this is good and this is good, but I prefer this one. Guess what? People don't give us the time of day. And so that kind of modesty on social media gets lost. That kind of nuance, that kind of sophistication gets totally lost. And you're just, that's interesting. So our lack of strong opinions really does hold us back. And here's the thing, right? The more experience you get, the more you realize the things you don't know. And I found this, like, if you've been doing something for 10 or 15 years, you start to realize there's more than one way to do things. There's things that you may never have appreciated before. You appreciate that there's things you don't know. But people who are naive and inexperienced will absolutely advocate, like a crazy person, that their idea is the best. And they're the people who win. They're the people who succeed because they violently, passionately, whatever word you want to describe it, believe in something and will fight for it. And that passion, that sense of belief and conviction is contagious at a human level. Somebody who believes something and stands for something, it's contagious. It draws a crowd and people want to get behind it. And that's how you build an army of people who back your ideas. And I think if you're experienced, if you've got some experience in the industry, if you've got some experience in different, disciplines and what have you, you're a subject matter expert, you kind of sit on the fence a little bit. And social media, online, media generally, print, TV, social, everything does not reward sitting on the fence. So things like controversial statements, right? Controversial statements. Now, I'm not a fan of attacking people, throwing people under the bus. I think it's low rent, low status behavior. But I think having some controversial beliefs, and we do have them, we just push them down. We just push them down into us and never talk about them. There's things we believe, there's things we think of, and it's like we should be talking about them. But here's the thing, like I said, with strong opinions and controversy, because we've been doing what we've been doing for such a long period of time, they're so buried we don't even know what they are. We're so reasonable that there's some things that we think that are just lost in us. And so, I might think, well, I'll give you one, right? Um, and I've kind of stood for this for a little while. I had a conversation with a client last week. Sorry, a year ago. A year ago, a client had come to me after they'd been on a course with a competitor, and they came and said, "Well, I'm investing quite 2 hours a day in my content, and I've been told that if I do this, I will attract clients. Clients will come to me because of the content." And I said to the client, "It's total BS. It does not work. It really does not work." And what I was basically saying was, if you like, the content game is a long-term game. So if you want to get lots and lots of reach and engagement, it's a very significant investment of time and money. And people who got this lots of attention, engagement, and everything did it when it was easy. So if you did it in 2018, it was way easier than in 2024. But to actually go, right, I'm going to blow up on social media with content and actually get leads, people queuing up to work with me, it's total nonsense. And it's perpetuated by people who want your money. It's perpetuated by people who actually don't realize, maybe I'll say it, I'm selling LinkedIn on LinkedIn, right? I'm selling social media on social media. That's like the easiest sell you can do. Selling marketing stuff online on social media is the easiest game in town. But if you're selling, widgets, or you're selling coaching, and it's not social media marketing coaching or copywriting, whatever, it's tougher than anything else. Think about it. If you're taking LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever platform seriously, you by your nature are interested in marketing. If you want to use that platform to market yourself, market your business, whatever it is, you are a potential client. But if you're on LinkedIn selling mindset coaching, it's not a billion people on there all want mindset coaching. So it's a different game. But anyway, I was talking to this client and I said, look, this attract content game, right? You are not in a financial position. They were doing about just under 10K a month. You are not in a financial position to pursue that because your basic business overheads and running costs aren't there. Some months you're down quite a lot and some months you're doing all right. You cannot pursue that content game. And I could see that the client wasn't convinced. And it's easy to see why, because the content game is the easy win. Like I was talking about earlier, it's the easy answer. If I just get that blows up, I get the dopamine rush. Oh, and I get clients coming to me. It's like the perfect message to give somebody. If you post, people will come to you. That's what we want, right? That's what we want. I want somebody to show me how I can be a billionaire without doing any work. That's what I want. I know in my head it's not true. I know that it's not as easy as it looks, but I'm susceptible to that message because we all want something for nothing. We want the easy answers. So I have this strong opinion. And of late, I've been sharing it because I've seen so many people waste so much time trying to chase this, right? But I have to stand for it and say, content doesn't work. If you are not selling marketing on LinkedIn, content is not the way to build a business. And it goes against the famous sayings of content is king. I have to be prepared. I have to summon up the balls to say some stuff that I believe that might be provocative, doesn't mean attacking people, because nobody pays attention to middle of the road. So embracing a bit of controversy is a good thing. I don't want to do it, but I realize actually, if I want to operate in an environment, if I want to succeed, the world is the world. It is where it is. I either try and fight that and take on the noble cause of trying to change the world, or I get into it and do it as my way, but play to the way the world works. I don't want to spend the time fighting the way the world is working and being the noble champion of not making the money, not getting the attention, not doing that to rally against the way things are. That might seem a little bit kind of pragmatic, and it is. It's very pragmatic. It's like going, okay, social media is sound bites, short attention spans, and drama and sensationalism. Okay, I've got some lines, and this is where your values, the real values, come in. What are the lines I won't cross, but I'll play to the way the game works? And it is a game. Online marketing is a game, right? It's drama, it's sensationalism. So the values then become more important. What are the lines I'm not prepared to cross, but I'm going to play the game? And this is where the next bit comes in is there is no prize. There is absolutely zero reward, zero prize for being modest online. I think you have to get over the fact that self-promotion, you have to do it. You have to own it. You have to do it. You have to be unashamedly self-promotional. Right? If you were running for president of the United States, you would promote yourself. You would say how great your values are. You would say how great this is because you're trying to get elected. You're trying to get people to vote for you. And reasonable people reasonable people would think, well, hang on a minute, people should make their own minds up. They should be able to evaluate, and they don't. They should evaluate you, they should study you, they should pay attention to you, they should read what you're talking about and make their own informed decision. Like in elections, voters read manifestos, except they don't. They look at um, photos, they look at statements, slogans, they look at um, who's the most engaging. It's all superficial stuff, the one liners, right? And you have to be prepared to front this up. Now, I don't like doing this. I was forced to do this from 2018, and even to today in 2024, there are some things that I know I should do and I don't do because it feels uncomfortable. Because that whole modesty and self-promotion, and the fears going through your mind. What if I say something and people disagree with me? What if somebody calls me out? What if I quote something and then somebody comes back with alternatives? All of that is reality. But if you want the upsides of being well known, if you want the upsides of being highly publicized, if you want the upsides of people knowing your name, if you want the upsides of people seeking you out for your advice, you've got to embrace self-promotion. And as a reasonable person, as an experienced subject matter expert, this is uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And how many of you listening to me, I've had this, people who don't know what they're doing, right? By my standards, right? I look at somebody and go, "You have no idea what you're doing. Your advice is so shallow. Your whatever, blah 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 blah." Thinking it in my head, right? And I can see them basically going, "This won't work for most people. It won't work." Now, I'm not going to attack them, but I'm looking at them and going, "Why the hell are they getting so much attention for stupid advice?" Anybody ever have you ever felt this? Have you ever been there? Right? It it's so frustrating. You see people, you know what's even worse? I see people who are sharing content they haven't made themselves, don't they're just playing the game of the content, putting out what they know will perform. They didn't create it themselves. They didn't, originate it themselves. Um, and they're putting stuff out that I think is, at best platitudes or shallow advice, stuff that just tickles our emotions, doesn't really have any long lasting difference. And I look at them doing that and seeing, they blow up and millions of followers and all this kind of stuff, and I go, why is this happening? Right, I've had conversations with people, serious subject matter experts with 3-4 million followers, and they send me messages of links to people's posts, and they're saying, why is this content blowing up? And it's because the people who are doing it are not afraid to self promote. They're actually prepared to risk going too far than not going far enough. And most of us, I think it's because I'm British as well, most of us grew up in a very conservative kind of um, upbringing, socially conservative, don't we, politically? Um, that modesty is good. It's a good quality. Unfortunately, online modesty is lost. And so the people who are succeeding are prepared to go too far than not go far enough. Reasonable people, subject matter experts, are the opposite. They're prepared to not go far enough than go too far. They're prepared to live with invisibility than push the boundaries so that they become visible. And I've got to battle with this because I know myself there's things that I've done that I've almost tempered, or I've not said something because I'm worried what might happen on a negative side, but then kick myself that why has my growth not been as fast as others maybe? And you'll have this as well. You'll have this as well. You'll be going, how is it that a company or a competitor is doing so well, yet we know how crap what they do is or whatever. And yet they're better at it than you. They're getting more sales or making more money or getting more traction than you. It's because of the boldness. It's because they're prepared to embrace it and almost push the envelope too far. And I think that's we're guilty. Reasonable people are guilty of going, you know what? I'll stay on the side of modesty and avoid the self promotion because something might go wrong, because I might say cross a line, because, and so we're living in fear of we're living in fear of things that might not happen, but living in invisibility or a degree of invisibility because we're hedging against the what ifs that we've conjured up in our heads. And so we're too cautious. We're far too cautious. And we need to be bolder. Yeah. But now comes the really tricky bit. So everybody talks about being authentic, right? And I'll just share this from my point of view, right? I feel like authenticity is something that we don't fully understand. And I don't mean this in a kind of like we don't understand the word. I think it's very difficult to know who we actually are because there are so many versions of who we are. Like, I'm Dean the dad, I'm Dean the husband, I'm Dean the business owner, I'm Dean the person, the influencer on LinkedIn, I'm Dean the person on Instagram, I'm Dean the socially. There is a million different Deans. I'm not the same person in every situation. With different people, I'm different people, and nobody talks about it. We say, "Oh, I'm just me. What you see is what you get." That's not true. We are different people in different settings. I behave differently and communicate differently in a university than I do with a group of small business owners. I behave and communicate differently on LinkedIn than I do in a corporate workshop. And so it can be very difficult to figure out who we actually are because there are different contexts of us and different settings of us. So, Dad and Maverick Dean, and there's university and corporate workshop Dean. There's solopreneur Dean working with solopreneurs, and there's Dean working with big beasts, stock market listed companies. So there is like different aspects to us. And when it comes to social media, there's just one. There's just one. There's just us. There's just the Dean. And so it's really hard because when you're posting and when you're putting stuff out, it's like, well, I'm posting like I've just done this, and but also I've got this. Like, you know, things are going great guns at Maverick. 2023 was a year of consolidation after huge growth for us. 2024 has been about, you know, just doing things and going. We said we were going to do 2 years of um just following the plan. But yeah, I'm also pumped up that the plan is working and things are going forward and it's great. And so there is this mismatch of the different Deans and the different you. And how do we be true to ourselves when there's so many different aspects to us? And that's, I think, many people find that difficult. I find that difficult. That's why I wanted to do this episode, really, is because actually, how do you integrate? And this is where integrity comes. How do you integrate those different aspects of us into one person that we can communicate on social? And this is a constant battle for reasonable people. How do you find that you're not faking yourself, but you are sharing who you really are? You're sharing what you're really about, what matters to you, what's important to you. How do you do that? And there will be elements of our true self that we'll never share. And this is a real challenge for people of like, who am I? Well, it's quite difficult to understand who I fully am because there's so many aspects to who I am. How do I? And so the natural thing is, right? The natural thing, and this is something we just have to settle. Even the people And even the people who say they are fully them true self, what you see online is what you get in person. It's not true. There will always be an element of us that is put away. There will always be an element of us that we can't share, whether that be family life, some personal struggle. There will always be that. And I think sometimes what happens is we think it's very difficult for us to go, hang on a minute. I look at that post and I'm being very one-sided. I'm just sharing the bits I want to share of me. And I think we're all doing that to a degree. But it can feel quite jarring because, you know, I'm Dean saying go do this and go do that. And there'll be other times when I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. So, I talk about, self-discipline and organization to really achieve stuff on social media. But actually, I know in my day-to-day, outside of social media, I'm horrendous at admin. And so we have these kind of like personal challenges where there's things that we're really strong at and some things that we're really bad at. And where we can, we need to integrate them and like own them. I hate admin. I've suddenly embraced that one over the last few years that, I can be very organized in some ways and horrific in others. And so that authenticity journey is going, right, okay, how do I join this up as much as possible? Because if I can't do that, my content, what I'm sharing, what I'm talking about will be middle of the road. And because I'll be trying to go, well, I don't want to say you've got to be organized because you'll never achieve anything if you're not organized. But then actually see the papers piled up on my desk that I've not got round to and the task list that I've not got round to. But on social media, I'm dead organized. So you see my point, right? That authenticity is reconciling as much of it as we can and going, yeah, there's going to be dimensions of Dean that will never make it to social media just because of the way I am. I'm not going to talk about some of the challenges I've had with X, Y, or Z because I don't want to. I don't feel the need to. So this is where actually the authenticity takes some time to join those things together. And we got to be bold. We got to be really strong and bold. And because if we're not bold, if we are kind of gentle, if we are modest, society does not reward that. Society does not pay attention to that. And I wish this wasn't true. I wish we weren't in this situation where television, media, newsprint, social media, everything is looking for sound bites and snippets and, to some degree, shallowness. However, here's the good news. Once you build that crowd, once you build that people who are invested in you because you've built that connection with them, they want to know the depths. They want to know the nuances. They want to know the grey areas because they're invested in you. But you get people invested in you by doing the controversial stuff, having the strong opinions, overcoming and ditching the whole modesty and being bold and embracing that self-promotion. And once people connect with you as a person, then they want the grey areas. They want the behind the scenes. They want the thought processes. They want to spend time you pondering ideas. And you could say that this is the difference between short form content and long form content. Short form content predominantly is for those people to discover you. And that's got to be bold. That's got to be a bit promotional. It's got to be strong, controversial, provocative. And I'm not saying you have to attack people. I'm not saying you have to say things you don't believe in or agree with. But you've got to fight for what you stand for. And you've got to discover what you stand for to do it. That's the short form. And then the long form is the depth, is the nuance, is the intricacies, it's the feelings. I'm not sure about this, guys. What do you think? It's the depth. That's where the people really, really connect with you. And so we have to embrace this situation, right? There's the campaign slogans and all of that stuff, which gets you elected by the masses. And then there's the core vote, which are the people who want to show up for a 2-hour speech, who read the manifesto and all of that stuff. Two separate groups of people, but your crowd, your core vote comes from the sound bites, the short bits, the bold statements, the self-promotion. All of that stuff gives you the core vote, the fans, the champions, the people who will read the 70-page document, the people who will listen to you for 37 minutes. That's where it comes from. And I think this is where experts, subject matter experts, reasonable people fall down, is we expect people to go straight into the depth of us, our thoughts, our ideas, our models, our methods, our all the depth of the detailed stuff that we want to talk about. We think that that will do it on its own. But it's the shallow stuff, the campaign slogans, the big bold statements, the pictures of you, that kind of stuff that actually helps you get in front of people so that they can become those fans and supporters and champions. And this is a difficult, this is something you have to kind of grab hold of and say, I've got to do it. And, one of the biggest things that really helped me with this is actually asking myself, taking some time to ask myself questions. Because I was so busy doing stuff that I didn't ask these big questions of myself. I didn't have an internal debate about where did I want to be? What did I think about things? How could I have said this differently? What are my strong opinions? I didn't have that debate. And so as I'm writing content and doing my schedules, guess what? Those thoughts, those ideas have never been processed. They've never been thrown around. And so you get middle of the road. You get reasonable content. You get nuanced content. But the harder bit, the tougher bit, is if you want to really put yourself out there, is finding those sound bites, getting comfortable with promoting yourself, like self-promotion. Like I still don't like it, but I'm going to do it. You might not like it, but you've got to do it. Because otherwise, you will be that substantive politician that has great ideas, great policies, great vision for the future, but nobody pays attention. Or not enough people pay attention to allow you to do what you want to do. You might have a great model for solving a particular problem for an industry, but because you're doing the substantive work, and not doing the shallow work, the promotion, the slogans, the bold statements, the pushing yourself out there, self-promotion, aggressive, all that stuff. And I'm not saying you become a pain in the ass or a knob, right? That's not what I'm saying. There's a nuance here, right? But because you're not embracing, I'm running for office and I need votes. I'm running for office and I need people to vote for me. And I'm the best choice. All gritting as I'm saying this, but you got to own it. You got to do it. Because we're not doing that bit, all of that substance, all of that big vision, all of that will be lost on the masses because we haven't got them invested using the sound bites, the bold statements, the controversial topics, embracing the self-promotion. So if you're a reasonable person, I think I'm a reasonable person. If you're a subject matter expert, you got to overcome this. You got to go and lock yourself in a room and go, what is the real obstacles here from me being self-promoting? What is it? And write them down. Start to have these internal debates with yourself and ask yourselves these big questions. What is causing you to moderate your content so it's blah? What is moderating you to not say what you believe so you can't build that traction with other people? Reasonable people struggle with social media because it's less substance, and it's more sizzle. And I'm not saying lie, because that's bad. I think you should know that, man. But we have to basically go, this is the best idea for you. I believe my ideas are the best. And until we embrace that, until we own that, until we get comfortable with that, other people can't buy in. They can't buy in. And we don't have to be arrogant. We don't have to be, you know, aggressive towards other people. We don't have to attack other people, but we have to go, do you know what? I firmly believe my way is the best way. And if you don't believe that, that's an even bigger problem for you. Maybe one of the big things coming out of this podcast is going, do you actually believe your way is the best way? Because when you do that, it changes how you communicate. It changes how you push that. And marketing, sales is exactly like an election campaign. You have to get people to believe in your ideas and vote for it. You have to get them to go and put a tick in a box and say, it's you. So marketing, political campaigning is exactly the same. It's exactly the same principles. And if you look at, for an example, if you look at the recent election of Keir Starmer, right, and the general election in the UK, it was not an election based on it was election based on nothing. It was like, you've got two choices. Neither of the choices were actually what people wanted. It was like, who's the lesser of two evils? But if you look at some other elections, like Tony Blair's election in 1997, that was people positively choosing to vote for him, right? So think about this. How are you helping people positively choose to vote for you? If you change your marketing and think, right, I'm running a political campaign and I've got to get people to vote for me. That means engagement, that means leads. Okay, I'm going to need a campaign message. I'm going to need strong principles and values that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to need opinions and policies that people want to buy into, models, methods that I want to say, this is the best method to solve this problem. Yeah, that's what we need to do. And those models need to be clear. They might be more complicated. And I'll just throw a bomb in here before I wrap up. Donald Trump, immigration in the US has been a major problem, right? For a long time. I think people are starting to recognize that that's a problem. But the issue of immigration, we're obviously wrapped up in prejudice and all sorts of stuff. But let's not go there for now. Donald Trump came along and said, the way we solve immigration is we build a wall. Now, whether you think building a wall is a good thing or a bad thing, he had a clear answer. And he stood by, the wall will fix everything. Right? Now, the detail of that is to be debated, right? Whether that's a successful policy is to be debated. What I'm trying to say is people could grab hold of that and say, yes, we've got a solution, we'll go with it. If you look at his rivals, they didn't have a clear answer because probably it was a more complicated thing, but they didn't have a soundbite way of saying, this is how we're going to solve it. And so think about this from your own perspective. Reasonable people listening to me and watching me, subject matter experts listening and watching to me. I'm not asking you to abandon your substance. I'm not asking you to forget the nuance. I'm asking you to bring the key messages out of where you stand on things, and push them to the front. Build that election campaign. Risk going too far than not far enough, because that's how reasonable people compete. Reasonable people compete. It should be that the world is a bit more grown up. It should be that the world is looking more at substance. It should be that headlines and sizzle should not drive the agenda. But it does. And it's not going to change anytime soon. And so Yes, this message is a bit provocative. Yes, I'm basically saying style wins over substance. I'm saying that. And for people who value substance, that's a bitter pill to swallow. That style wins against substance in 99% of the occasions. We can all find a rogue one that's done that. Style beats substance. So people of substance, people who have something to say, who have deep thoughts, big ideas, you have to embrace the style. And that means being bold. That means sharing your ideas. That means dying on a hill for some things, standing on that hill and proclaiming this is it. That means having very clear messaging and running an election campaign with style backed up by substance. Style first, substance behind. Otherwise, you're a very reasonable person. You'll blend into the background and nobody will see the power of your ideas to solve their problems. Nobody will see the value of your service to fix what they cannot fix. So, reasonable people, it's time to embrace that style and stick with the substance. But I found that this is a major issue. It's a major frustration, but it is a major issue. And reasonable people struggle on social media because it takes to succeed. You have to embrace this kind of style. Strong opinions, personality in the digital space is going to help you win. And everybody's obsessed with algorithms, but if you don't have something to stand for, the algorithms are irrelevant. So I'd love your opinions on this, right? If you've struggled with this, if you're having some of these, thoughts about how do I balance this and why that, if you are that subject matter expert or you are that reasonable person and you're having challenges with self-promotion, you're having challenges with getting your strong opinions, maybe even you're struggling to think what your strong opinions are, or maybe you've got some of the kind of, common values, honesty, integrity, blah, 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 but maybe the bigger values that you're going to campaign on. I'd love to hear from you. So drop me a message, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. Come and find me. And if this podcast has helped you think and consider, maybe I do need to have an internal debate with myself about what I believe about my subject matter expertise. What do I believe about my subject area? What do I believe about my methodology? What do I believe about what I do and the way I do it? Do I believe in what I sell? Do I believe in what I do? I'd love to hear from you. So come find me, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. Drop me a message and tell me what you think. I'd love to have hear your thoughts on this. But I'm convinced that the reasonable people need to really own this to stop this shallowness, but also importantly to get your substance out there and build that core base of people who want to read your 7-minute blog, who want to listen to you for 50 minutes. I can't believe I've done this for 50 minutes. I think it's important because style should not beat substance. It should not. But in a media age, it does. It does. So ponder it and come and speak to me, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. Thank you for listening to this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's a wrap for this episode of my podcast. If you love this, please share it on your socials, share it with your friends, and come and connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or X.